Hello and welcome to a different brewery. Last weekend, Manchester Homebrew had a brew day at Beer Nouveau in Manchester. We were making a beer on their one-barrel pilot kit. The beer was for the community brew competition at BrewCon Leeds. This competition involves clubs from around the country brewing with local breweries. The beers will be judged by a mix of professional brewers and beer judges in the run-up to BrewCon event in Leeds in July. The Manchester Homebrew group came up with a recipe after some discussions with our Facebook group and in a number of votes and opinion polls to try and gauge opinions. In the end, we decided to brew a black saison with some special additions from a few members of the club. On the day, people started to arrive at the brewery at about 10 in the morning, and as in any brew day, the first thing to do after getting a cup of tea was to start the HLT warming up. Now, as we all know, the real reason professional brewers do collaborations is to get their kit cleaned properly. As the HLT heated up, various club members gave the mash tun and boiler a thorough cleaning and helped get the fermenter ready for the beer. Now with Beer Nouveau's one-barrel pilot kit, the process for mashing in will be very familiar to many home brewers. We added the base malt, 35 kilograms of Pilsen Lager malt, and some of the specialty malt, 2 kilograms each of Munich and acidulated, while mixing in with the hot water. Unfortunately, we overshot our target mash temperature a bit, but hopefully this won't affect the finished beer too much. While the mash was on, it was time for a break. Steve was kind enough to provide samples of some of his beers and share some bottles that had been left at his brewery. Steve's beers were good, but some of the ones that had been left were less pleasant. We also had a few other commercial beers that had been brought along for the group to taste. At this point, some of you may have seen our attempts to get a live stream working on a slightly dodgy internet connection. Apologies for the dodgy video, but hopefully you could make out some of what was going on. And then the mash was finished and it was time to run off the wort. At this point we capped the mash with 1.5 kilograms of Carafa 2. This malt was added late in the mash to reduce the amount of roast flavours added to the beer while maintaining the dark colour. And so on to the boil. We added 750 grams of Saaz at the start of the boil, followed by another 250 grams each of Saaz and Hallertau Mittelfrüh with 10 minutes to go. Now saisons and other Belgian beers often contain some sugar, so we had decided that some of the colour of our beer should come from candy syrup. So during the boil we added 1.2 kilograms of 1000 EBC extra dark candy syrup and some homemade syrup from Sarah. We then made a little extra addition of a couple of kilograms of blackberries from Keith, our foraging and wild beer expert. And finally we started chilling the wort, which took quite a long time. Now while we've been planning this beer, I happened to be brewing a batch of my regular saison, and we decided to use the yeast from this to ferment the club beer. The yeast we used in this beer started out of the packet each of WLP 565 Belgian saison and Y yeast 3711 French saison. The reason for using two yeasts is that the WLP 565, which is said to be the Saison DuPont strain, is infamous for stalling. I had this happen a couple of times when I started brewing saisons, so I started adding the French saison strain in addition to take over if the original strain decided to give up. To get the yeast ready for the brew day, I top cropped during high Krausen stage fermentation, which you can probably see in a later video. Then I ran a step starter. I started with 1 litre, then 2.5 litres on the stir plate, before transferring it into a demijohn for an unstirred 4.5 litre final step. Then I delivered the demijohn of yeast to the brewery the day before the event, just to make it easier to transport and leave it in the warm room overnight. As the brew day drew to a close, we pitched the yeast and left it to ferment in peace. Overall, we had a great day brewing and tasting beers and look forward to seeing how our beer does in the competition. Thanks to Steve at Beer Nouveau for hosting us and Simon and the BrewCon team for organising the competition. I look forward to seeing some of you at BrewCon in Leeds next month.